Good evening, I'm Ebony Brandon. Today is Tuesday, 16th January 2018. This is the SKN News Now Evening Edition. In the headlines tonight, nationally, condolences on the passing of retired Commissioner Robert Jeffers continue to pour in. Internationally, China and Russia have not been invited to the Canada Summit on North Korea. And in sport, Olympic champion Simone Biles says she too was abused by Dr. Larry Nassar. We've got the details of these stories, the weather and Carib update all ahead in tonight's edition of SKN News Now. Leader of Her Majesty's Loyal Opposition, Right Honourable Dr. Denzil Douglas, is the latest to express his sadness at learning of the passing of retired Commissioner of Police Robert Jeffers on Sunday evening at age 70. Dr. Douglas, who was Prime Minister during the period Commissioner Jeffers served, said he will be remembered for his exemplary service to the Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force. Dr. Douglas also credited Mr. Jeffers with his efforts in modernizing the Criminal Investigation Department and introducing fingerprint identification technology. He also recalled that Mr. Jeffers was keen on keeping his skills sharp by continually refreshing his training and was always a top performer in regional training activities. The former Prime Minister added that it is important that Mr. Jeffers be remembered by the nation for his lifelong commitment and sacrifice to faithfully serving the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. In a statement, Dr. Douglas extended condolences to Mr. Jeffers' family on his own behalf and that of the federal opposition, adding that he hoped they would take comfort in knowing that his is a legacy that is permanently etched into the history of St. Kitts and Nevis. Retired Commissioner Jeffers joined the St. Kitts Nevis Anguilla Police Force at the age of 18 in 1966. He continued unbroken service in what later became the Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force until his retirement in 2008. Meanwhile, the Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force has come forward and shared their own sadness at the news of their former leader and comrade's passing. Present Commissioner Ian Quealy said he was deeply saddened by the news of retired Commissioner Jeffers' passing, noting that he had spent much of his adult life protecting and serving the people of St. Christopher and Nevis. Commissioner Quealy described his predecessor as candid and an astute lawman who was exceedingly knowledgeable in the law and his understanding of regulations, and considered by many to be a guru in the area of evidence and procedure. Commissioner Quealy went on that even in retirement, Commissioner Jeffers remained active in the police force, attending activities organized by the force. He also acted as a visiting tutor for new recruits at the police training complex in the area of evidence and procedure and assisted officers with preparation for their promotion exams. Additionally, Mr. Jeffers submitted questions for those exams and, as recently as 2017, he assisted with marking exam papers. On a more personal note, Commissioner Quealy credited his professional advancement in the force to retired Commissioner Jeffers' advice and support over the years. In other news developments, a day after the St. Kitts and Nevis Labour Party demanded that the government provide an update on the status of investigations into the illegal and unethical 2016 herpes vaccine trials on St. Kitts, a new twist in the ongoing saga is unfolding. The United States Senate has now caught wind of the scandal and has taken an interest. According to an article published in the Washington Post, Chairman of the Judiciary Committee, Republican Senator Chuck Grassley, is demanding that the United States government and Southern Illinois University investigate how Professor William Halford was able to conduct human testing of his experimental herpes vaccine with absolutely no oversight or authorization. It is believed that the senator's interest is also triggered by the fact that many of Halford's test subjects, who all suffered from herpes, were American citizens. The other subjects in the tests carried out between 2013 and 2016 were British citizens. The Washington Post said Senator Grassley's goal is to ensure that similar action and unregulated research does not ever take place in the future. Grassley has also written to the Department of Health and Human Services and the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, stating that the unfortunate incident represents a failure on the part of the U.S. government and its agencies, and also on the part of Southern Illinois University, which holds patents on Halford's research to oversee the research being done. He's also written to the Federal Office for Human Research Protection, the OHRP, which monitors how human subjects are treated in trials. At home in St. Kitts and Nevis, the Office of the Chief Medical Officer and former Chief Medical Officer Dr. Patrick Martin have both denied knowledge of Halford's tests in the Federation back in the summer of 2016, when some 20 persons were administered the experimental vaccine Theravax. After Prime Minister Dr. Timothy Harris repeatedly dismissed the scandalous fake news and opposition noise, the Ministry of Health later confirmed that an investigation was being carried out locally by the police and not the office of the CMO into how the test took place and who was involved. Former associates of Professor Halford, who died in June 2017, have gone on record as saying that the SIU professor received authorization from unnamed authorities in St. Kitts and Nevis to carry out his research. There is still no word on the status of the investigation, which has been carrying on now for almost 4 months. St. Kitts and Nevis is presently participating in an Information and Communications Technologies, or ICT, summit in neighboring Antigua and Barbuda. Regional leaders, including Prime Minister Dr. Timothy Harris, have gathered in the Twin Island nation to discuss and move to implement technological solutions which will aid in modernizing their countries and developing 21st century governments. The Caribbean Telecommunications Union, or CTU, describes a 21st century government as one that makes effective use of ICT to deliver services to its citizens as well as in internal and external clients. It is also characterized by citizen-centric, seamless, open, interactive, efficient, and transparent processes. The CARICOM heads at the Summit of Prime Ministers are expected to consider the principles of 21st century government and a proposed plan that will lead to government transformation. The summit will be followed by a 3-day symposium from January 17th through 19th, designed to prepare public sector practitioners for the work that has to be done to establish these 21st century governments. Among those expected to participate in the symposium are ICT and public administration ministers, permanent secretaries and technocrats, ICT network operators and regulators, international development agencies, and representatives of the business community. The goal of establishing a 21st century government is to improve the quality and scope of government services to citizens, financial benefits to government in the form of cost reduction in the delivery of services and improved collections, improved government efficiency, reduction of costs to citizens, reduction in service transaction costs and times, enhanced communications within governments and between government and citizens, greater ease of doing business, which increases the country's competitiveness and is an incentive for direct foreign investment, and improved transparency. The 21st Century Government Summit and Symposium is being organized by the Government of Antigua and Barbuda and the Caribbean Telecommunications Union in collaboration with the Caribbean Center for Development and Administration. Meanwhile, Akeem Saunders, a professional cricketer hailing from St. Kitts, has been arrested in Antigua and Barbuda. According to reports in Antiguan media, Saunders was taken into custody by narcotics and canine police after a search of his baggage revealed 13 grams of marijuana. The marijuana was reportedly hidden in a shoe. Up to news time, Saunders remained under arrest in police custody in Antigua and Barbuda and is assisting with the investigation. Saunders arrived in Antigua at the VC Bird International Airport on Monday on a Caribbean Airlines flight in transit to St. Kitts. He was returning home from regional cricket duties after playing in Jamaica over the weekend with the Leeward Islands Hurricanes. And 4 students on NEWS are the latest beneficiaries of the Alexander Hamilton Scholarship Award. During a brief ceremony at the annual Alexander Hamilton Tea Party on the Alexander Hamilton Museum grounds on Friday, Kegel Isaac and Jonica Williams of the Charlestown Secondary School and Karamani Hanley and Kamalija Warner of the Gingerland Secondary School received their scholarships. The half-century-old Alexander Hamilton Scholarship Award will ensure that the students receive assistance throughout their secondary school career. In addition to maintaining academic excellence, the recipients of the award are required to volunteer some of their time each month to the Alexander Hamilton Museum. They're also required to submit their report cards or other information required by the scholarship committee. Also in attendance at the award ceremony were Premier Mark Brantley, other members of the Nevis Island Administration Cabinet, a relative of Alexander Hamilton, and former scholarship recipients. After his birth on Nevis, Alexander Hamilton went on to become one of the founding fathers of the United States of America and drafters of the country's Constitution. Hamilton, an attorney, was also Chief of Staff to the first American President, George Washington, and also noted for his contributions to journalism, the military, and his interest in political science. That concludes our national developments this evening. Stay with us, still to come in just a moment. Today's top international developments. Foreign ministers from 20 countries are in Vancouver, Canada, to discuss the North Korean nuclear threat. They are looking for ways to increase diplomatic and financial pressure on North Korea to force it to give up its nuclear ambitions. But China and Russia have not been invited. Beijing is North Korea's key trading partner and its only ally. It has called the summit meaningless. China wants gentle diplomacy to work first instead of tougher measures. Rob McBride explains.
Tensions have increased and tensions have eased, but the trains and trucks have continued to roll. At the Friendship Bridge in Dandong, some of the essential food and supplies that keeps North Korea going arrives from China. 90% of North Korea's trade is with China. While Chinese leaders say they fully implement UN sanctions, they seem equally determined not to allow North Korea to collapse.
The hope is that over time, North Korea might be able to adapt while still manage to survive. So China won't take abrupt measures to completely cut off North Korea.
Despite sanctions, there's evidence that some North Korean businesses, such as restaurants and hotels, that should have been closed, have stayed open. From China's perspective, now is not the time for tougher measures. With the resumption of talks between North and South Korea, Beijing wants to encourage the signs of a thaw.
North Korea and South Korea have started talking. The Olympics will be held at the start of next month. I'm not sure China has the political motivation to impose further severe sanctions.
The fear for China is that just as there's a hint of an improvement in relations with North Korea, the US and its allies are preparing to ratchet up the pressure, and that will only harden Pyongyang's position. The North Korean leadership say nuclear missiles capable of hitting the US are needed for survival against hostile powers. More threats from the US and its allies might give leader Kim Jong-un the justification to speed up the weapons program, not slow it down.
Boko Haram has released a new video which is said to show some of the schoolgirls kidnapped in Chibok in 2014. In the 21-minute video, some of the girls say they don't want to be rescued, but analysts believe the timing of the release and the intent is clear, that Boko Haram wants to force the government to negotiate. Ahmed Idris reports.
The video shows some of the girls with babies. This girl says they are happy where they are.
We are the Chibok girls. You have been crying that we should be released, but by the grace of Allah, we will not return home.
But some analysts believe the timing of the release and the intent is clear.
Boko Haram wants government to come and approach it for negotiations. And you never can tell whether those girls were voluntarily saying all what they're saying.
The Chibok girls were taken in 2014, 276 abducted from their boarding school. In May 2017, 82 girls were released after intense negotiations. All in all, more than 100 have been reunited with their families over the years. Although the government didn't admit to paying a ransom, many Nigerians believe money changed hands. Some believe paying the fighters will help them rearm and carry on their operations. The Nigerian government insists negotiations are ongoing to secure the release of the girls and hundreds of others held by Boko Haram. But while this is going on, the country's military has continued its operations against the fighters in the northeast, something that could jeopardize their release. Parents and campaigners have identified some of the girls in the new video, saying it's proof that government needs to do more to bring them home.
As far as we're concerned, we hold on to what the girls that were released said. They said that most of their friends are still alive. If any number of the girls are dead at all, it was such an, it was less number than the kind of numbers that people had said were dead.
Despite government claims of victory, Boko Haram continues to adapt to its losses, targeting isolated communities, transport convoys, and public places. Nearly 4 years on from their kidnap, more than 100 Chibok girls and hundreds of other captives are still being held by Boko Haram. Their parents left waiting and desperate to see them again.
Still straight ahead in tonight's edition of SKN News Now, sport, the weather, and Carib update. And in sport this evening, United States Olympic gymnast champion Simone Biles says she too was a victim of former doctor Larry Nassar, the former team doctor who will be sentenced this week for allegedly sexually abusing dozens of young athletes in his care. Elise Hallman has the details.
Simone Biles was one of the most recognisable faces of the 2016 Olympic Games in Rio de Janeiro. Then 19 years old, she won 4 gold medals in gymnastics. But for a career that's been so public, on Monday Biles revealed something that's been hidden. I too am one of the many survivors that was sexually abused by Larry Nassar. In this lengthy post on Twitter, she detailed her emotions attached to the alleged abuse, accompanied by the hashtag #MeToo, a symbol against sexual harassment in recent months. Biles added, "This behaviour is completely unacceptable, disgusting and abusive, especially coming from someone whom I was told to trust." Larry Nassar is facing sentencing in Michigan State Court this week after pleading guilty to 7 counts of criminal sexual assault. He was USA Gymnastics team doctor from 1996 to 2015, treating athletes at 4 Olympic Games, and also worked at Michigan State University for 2 decades. He's admitted to sexually abusing young patients under the guise of medical treatment dating back to 1998. 2012 Olympic gold medalists Gabby Douglas, Michaela Maroney and Ali Raceman are also among his alleged victims.
Make no mistake, this is an American tragedy. It's a tragedy not only for these women and their families and the hundreds of other women he did this to, but also for our country.
Separate lawsuits have been filed against Michigan State University and USA Gymnastics, accusing them of covering up crimes. Nassar is facing a minimum 25 years in prison. The hope is that no one else will ever need to say "me too" because of him.
And with that look at sport, we now turn attention to this evening's weather forecast. Over St. Kitts and Nevis tonight, we can expect partly cloudy to cloudy conditions with the chance of showers remaining moderate. Seas are moderate to locally rough with waves of 1.5 to 2.1 meters or 5 to 7 feet. Small craft operators should continue to exercise caution on the Atlantic side of the Leeward Islands, while a warning remains in place for sea bathers against hazardous breaking swells. Winds are easterly at 9 to 15 miles per hour over land and increasing at times to 17 miles per hour over coastal waters. The sea level pressure is 1,016.5 millibars or 30.01 inches. The sun will rise tomorrow at 6:36 a.m. That concludes this evening's news presentation. Before we go, a recap of this evening's top stories. Nationally, condolences on the passing of retired Commissioner Robert Jeffers continue to pour in. Internationally, China and Russia have not been invited to the Canadian summit on North Korea. And in sport, Olympic champion Simone Biles says she also was abused by former Dr. Larry Nassar. I've been your presenter this evening, Ebony Brandon. Thank you so very much for tuning in. Stay with us, still to come in just a moment, Carib Update. Good night.